This is okay. In just a few hours, we are going to see Theresa May, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, go speak to the House of Commons, and she's going to be outlining her plan. And so, I'm looking at, as I've been saying Brexit, here are what I've been seeing. I've been seeing more and more people in Britain do not like the Brexit deal. As I was reading the news prior to the Brexit election, the BBC and most other major British outlets were not accurately portraying what was going on with Brexit. We've seen this with BBC News before. Their portrayal of austerity was highly inaccurate. They did not accurately portray that austerity would lead to the Great Depression that Greece has seen over this decade. And that was a major shortfall that if they were talking to any actual legit economists who have ever used calculus in their lives, they would have predicted. It's not complicated stuff. This is just knowing your basic macroeconomic models. So, I haven't really been reading the BBC News very much, except for like popular opinion to know what other people are looking at, because it is a widely used source, especially when it comes to European politics. I've been mostly reading The Economist because out of all of the major publications in the world, The Economist is the one which accurately predicted what would happen with the austerity crisis. They also accurately predicted and assessed Brexit in a way that no other major news outlet did. And they were anti-Brexit, and they were anti-Brexit because it is a bad deal for Britain. They were anti-austerity because it is a scam. It was a scam from the beginning, and all of Europe got scammed by Angela Merkel. And that's just the truth. So, with Brexit, as I'm reading what's going on, I highly doubt that they're not going to leave the EU in full. That's the chaos that will happen in Northern Ireland, if that were to happen, is so immense, it's not going to happen again. So, the fourth thing I think is the least likely to happen is a soft Brexit. So, they started leave the European Union and they lose their voting rights, but they still, have to follow all the EU laws. I think that's highly unlikely. I think the Irish border and the border at Gibraltar and several other things like moving between France and Britain, it's going to make any leaving the EU terrible for the British economy. It's going to create a depression. Which is a recession of 4 quarters or more. That's what it is by economists. That's the definition that every economist uses. It's not going to happen. The third most likely option is that Theresa May will be removed as Prime Minister. I think this is almost a guarantee that's going to happen before the end of the year. She has utterly failed at this. She has lied to the people. She has lied about everything. And her policies have almost bankrupted Britain. And she is not going to be Prime Minister within 12 months, is my prediction. But I think it's going to go further than that. A second referendum is possible on the Brexit initiative, and that would fail, meaning that Britain would stay in the EU and we keep the status quo. If they did end up leaving the EU anyways, they'd eventually need to regain, and Britain is not the economic powerhouse relatively that it was in the 1970s, which is when they joined the European community. And they would not be able to get their exemption from Schengen or other things that they fought for, which they really don't benefit from, but they have in place. And any renegotiation for re-entering the EU, which would happen anyways, would destroy their economy. It's not going to happen. I think the most likely thing we're going to see this year is a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister, and we're going to see them call the writs. And I believe that's still a thing they could do, though they changed the rules a few years ago, and that the general election is going to pass. Here are your choices. You've got Theresa May, the Prime Minister, and she's conservative, of course, and she's led Brexit, and she has failed. You have Jeremy Corbyn, who is the head of the Labour Party, and he has this knack of praising dictators who call themselves Marxists, which is really not cool and very racist, and he's not a very good person. And the Labour Party is not that anti-Brexit. They're kind of on the fence about what is really one of the most obvious things about British politics today, that Brexit is a terrible plan. It will hurt everybody in the UK. That's gonna hurt them. The Liberal Democrats are the only one who have a leader who are completely anti-Brexit. They're pro-European Union. They have been since forever. If you look at their history, back in the early 1900s, there's some fantastic liberal prime ministers, and their policies today are just absolutely reasonable. They're environmentalists. They support human rights. I'm just reading off Wikipedia. They want to increase teacher pay. They want to help the NHS. And I think they are the only party today. They also are the only party that favors election reform, because first past the post is why they have a conservative government anyways. So my prediction is the most likely thing is general election. If the people of Britain have been paying attention over the last, 20 years, they're going to vote for the Liberal Democrats because they're pro-Europe. And I think that is going to be the likely scenario that's going to happen. I know the Lib Dems don't have a lot of votes right now, but it's partially me hoping, partially me seeing the other two major parties and saying, oh, awful, bad, ick, yuck. So that's my expectation. Those are my predictions, and we'll see if I'm right tomorrow.